We come now today to the tongue of the wise. And Proverbs says a lot about speech. In fact, over 70 Proverbs discuss the issue of speech. This idea of our words is in the top 5 most discussed subjects in Proverbs. So 4 ahead of it are righteousness, wisdom, wickedness, and folly. So you think about that. Those are the 4 ideas, the parallel concepts, the contrasting concepts of wisdom and folly with their moral equivalents, righteousness and wickedness. So you have those 4 things are what Proverbs is all about. And then the next thing that's being spoken of, and certainly the single most discussed behavior in Proverbs, is our speech. So what that tells us right off the bat is speech is incredibly important in wisdom. Or to say it another way, wisdom says a lot about how we speak. Or to say it yet another way, if we are wise, we will speak skillfully and morally. That's what Proverbs says over and over and over again. And this is a challenging area, as James reminds us that the tongue is a little member set on fire by hell. It is this little member which, if you can control your tongue, you are a mature Christian. It really is a hallmark of maturity in the book of James. In the book of wisdom, in the book of Proverbs, it is a hallmark of wisdom. Now, last week, lesson 26, anybody remember at all what lesson 26 was about? Last week's lesson was about the wise are teachable. So part of what wisdom, Proverbs teaches about wisdom is that the wise listen. The wise listen first, then they speak. The wise person imitates the speech habits of Lady Wisdom. So we'll start there, and I'm just going to read it. But Proverbs 8, verses 6 through 8. So we have wisdom, and Proverbs 8 is this incredible ode to wisdom, telling of wisdom's glory. In Proverbs 8, verse 6, it says, "Listen," wisdom is speaking here, "listen, for I will speak of excellent things, and from the opening of my lips will come right things. For my mouth will speak truth, wickedness is an abomination to my lips. All the words of my mouth are with righteousness. Nothing crooked or perverse is in them." So wise men, wise women imitate the speech of Lady Wisdom. They speak excellent things. They speak righteous things. They do not speak deceitful things, but truthful things. And so we have, of course, an overabundance of Proverbs where we could go to consider this. And so I will take this and remind us as we're thinking about the Proverbs, and we're dealing now with Proverbs 10 to 30, we have these individual statements that are scattered throughout the book of Proverbs. In each statement, it tells us something about speech. And we have to take all of them together to understand what wise speaking is. We cannot just take one proverb or 2 proverbs and say, well, this is wise speaking. We have to take all of them together to get the full picture of wise speech. And so today, even more so than some other weeks, I'm just introducing this subject. And it's for you to really go and to dig in. And remember, at the bottom of this lesson, there's a list of related proverbs. I don't know if I have all of them in there. I remind you that I have at the bottom of this lesson the related verses, related proverbs. And so if you're going and digging in on your own, that's going to give you the majority of them. May not be all of them. It's going to be the majority of them related to this subject, and certainly a great place to start. So we have 2 verses, Proverbs 17, 27 and 28. So this is 17, 27, this is 17:28. They are absolutely connected to one another. But let's start with verse 27. And again, just identifying the kind of parallelism. Let me get out of the way of the list. So what kind of parallelism is verse 27? I would say it's just a repeating in this sense, but though absolutely, I do see where that's coming from. And I'll get to why I think it's repeating and not developing in a little bit. So we have a couple I think a very obvious parallel right off the bat is he and man. So then you have actually, what are the verbs or the verb phrases? And what's the verb phrase in the first line? It spares his words is going to be, spares is going to be the verb and all the rest there. So what's the verb phrase here on the second line? Yeah, so we're going to have is, a calm spirit there. So I'll just do that there. So you have, I would write this, he who is of, or he of knowledge. It's very, very brief in Hebrew. It's he of knowledge. So you have then, what would that then be parallel with knowledge? Yeah, so you have the one who has knowledge is parallel with understanding. So it's really pretty straightforward. And even, I know this one, the English, I'm kind of grumbling about the English just a little bit. But even in the English, you can see clearly you have the parallel here between knowledge and understanding. There's no question there about that. And so that leaves us with these last two phrases to deal with. So the one who has knowledge, the one who, and in this case, both these words are synonyms with wisdom. When you're seeing them in Proverbs, you see knowledge or understanding. Really, most of the time, it's a synonym with wisdom. So to make it, maybe simplify it, what does the wise man do? Spares his words. What does it mean to spare? Yeah. That's exactly it. I mean, it's to be careful with, it's controlling the words and limiting the flow of them. And then you have a man of wisdom does what? Yeah, he is of a calm spirit. And this describes him. He is of a rare spirit, actually, but also he has a controlled spirit. So that's part of the reason I would say I do say these two are parallel, is because you have him sparing his words, and then he's controlling his spirit. And in this, and this is where it has that developing aspect to it that Gene was seeing, is it does give us a little bit more about what this looks like. It's not just that he controls his tongue. What else does he control? His spirit. So the inner man is under control here, is being held in place there. And so you have, summarizing that then, how would you say this proverb in your own words? You don't have to try to make it catchy or rhyming or anything memorable. Just how would you restate that in your own words? Okay, a smart man is under control. I might say wise man, because there are a lot of smart people who aren't under control. But I'm being a little bit nitpicky, because as we think about Proverbs, and it actually never equates intelligence with wisdom. And I, at least when I say smart, I think intelligent. And so, but all of that, Jim's paraphrase is good. A smart man is under control. I think is how you said it. So then you have the second verse here. And this verse is absolutely connected to the first verse because of a conjunction. Even. That, in this case, it is a conjunction. So It is, if you really care, the Hebrew word is gam. Very helpful to you, I know. But it very much is, it's also, might be another way of saying it, which is more like a conjunction, also a fool is counted wise when he holds his peace. When he shuts his lips, he is considered perceptive. So let's go through and do the same thing again. So we have this time a fool and he. And the phrases are reversed in their order here. So what is the fool in the first line? What's the fool doing? Okay, so when he holds his peace, I'll do that again. The second line, what's the fool doing? Yep, he shuts his lips there. So what is a fool? What happens to the fool when he holds his peace? He is counted or considered wise. What about the second line? What happens to him? He is considered perceptive. And so we have what kind of parallelism here? Yeah, this is repeating. This is all nearly just duplicate. Duplication of the original line there, so that you have, it's a little bit different order of the ideas, but it's the same ideas. So let's put this one in your own words. I would say it this way, because the fool doesn't necessarily have self-control, but when he exercises, or a man who has self-control isn't necessarily wise. But a fool, when he exercises self-control, is considered wise. Mark Twain said it very memorably, better to be thought a fool than open your mouth and remove all doubt. So we have the fool, when he exercises self-control, is seen to be more wise than he is. The wise one has self-control. And so Carolyn's absolutely right that self-control is really at the center of these two verses here. And yet there's a lot of stuff that's going on in this as well. So let me give you a few principles here. The first one, again, and you're just going to have to fill these in as we go. I'll do my best to be clear. The truly wise are not talkative. The truly wise are not talkative. The one who has knowledge, he has his words under control. He has this understanding that he doesn't need to be always talking. You've probably all heard the old proverb, silence is golden. We don't live in that age anymore that loves silence. We love constant noise. If two people are together and are quiet, there are many people who just consider it an awkward silence. And yet wisdom, then the wise are not talkative. Silence is a mark of wisdom. It really is. It's just the ability to be quiet, to not talk, to not say what you know is a mark of wisdom. I'll tell a story about Jim and our men's fellowship a couple weeks ago. We get together and talk about all kinds of different things, and somehow we got talking about roundabouts. And it's a favorite topic because we all hate them. And Jim is a traffic control engineer. And I don't know how much work he's done directly with those things, but of all of the people sitting around the table talking, Jim is the one who has actual training and knowledge in that whole field. And so in this particular case, Jim is the wisest one of the bunch. And Jim was the quietest of the bunch. I would have actually really loved to hear what he was thinking about our conversation. And Jim just, I would say that case is an expression of wisdom, a practice of wisdom. You don't need to say everything you know. You don't need to talk every time a subject comes up that you have an opinion about. Wisdom is silent at times. Now, the challenge here, and this is where where we have to really apply all the Proverbs is to know when to be silent and when to speak. Because there are absolutely times where it is foolish to remain silent. And so there's not a blanket answer here, just stop talking. The right answer is to know when to talk. Restraint is a sign of understanding. And this is the inner restraint, to be able to listen, to be able to be a part of a conversation, to see what's going on and not get upset. To have that calm spirit, that controlled spirit, that I'm not all cranked up and I'm not chafing to say something, but rather that there's truly a restraint. True understanding brings peace. And this really, I think, is one of the hallmarks of what makes wisdom, biblical wisdom, unique. Is that when we have a true and deep understanding of a subject, we're understanding it in light of God. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And so when I'm looking at a situation, I'm looking at the news, and I see whatever latest atrocity occurring. And it may be a situation where I need to know more about it. I think the vast majority of stuff on the news we don't actually need to know more about. But there are times where we legitimately need to know more about that. And so you may begin to go and to find out more about it and develop an actual understanding of it that is deeper than whatever the headline says or whatever distortion of whatever news source says. It's actually a kind of understanding where you've gone back and you've read the original accounts. You've got firsthand information on it. And as you're understanding the situation, there's absolutely the ability to be enraged. Because if you're reading, you see the headlines and you see the reality, they often are really very far apart from one another. And it's easy to see, well, they're lying about everything. And true understanding doesn't just have the facts at hand, it sees them in light of God, who rules the whole world. We saw this just a few weeks ago, that even the God's sovereign rule even is exercised even over the roll of the dice, the casting of the lots, the random chance and accident and luck is under God's sovereign control. And so I look at an event, I say, here's what's going on, but I see it in light of Proverbs, I see it in light of the God of Proverbs, and that there now is a peace. There's a calm spirit, which is priceless, is able to handle those things and to respond to them with a proper peacefulness, a proper gracefulness and graciousness. You also have the next bullet, the one with insight is calm, inside and out. The one with insight is calm, inside and out. So again, as much of what I've already said here, that this is not just external restraint. Again, there's absolutely appropriate to button your lip. It's just to be quiet, and even if you don't feel like it. So Proverbs certainly does not call us, well, if you can't control, if you're feeling this in your spirit, then you should express it. Absolutely not. Proverbs says that is the way of folly. Many times our culture calls that authenticity. Proverbs says it's folly. So even if you aren't of calm spirit, control your tongue. Then you might be counted wise. But ultimately the goal is that calm spirit. And then the next bullet, even the unsaved recognize restrained speech as a mark of wisdom. Again, it's not certain that this person is wise, but even the unsaved recognize restrained speech is a mark of wisdom. So I already quoted Mark Twain. We know the one who talks all the time, he's not a wise man. And that's the last bullet. The talkative person is a fool. So while a fool can be silent, and he may not actually be wise, The one who is talking and just is always talking is foolish. And you can mark him as a fool. So, application here. The solution to a noisy life is to train the heart in wisdom. So if your heart is full of noise and agitation, the solution is to train the heart in wisdom. If you are troubled and upset on a regular basis, learn wisdom. Secondly, to control your speech, learn wisdom. And this is one of the most important things as we see in Proverbs. As I said at the beginning, we recognize that speech is an incredibly difficult part of our lives to control. And one of the reasons it is so difficult to control our tongues is we start in the wrong place. We start talking about controlling our tongue. Don't say those things. If you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. All of our responses are start there at the tongue. But what has Proverbs taught us that the tongue is directly connected to? The heart. So where should I start to do the work if I want to control my tongue? The heart. Yeah, we have to start in the heart. So to control your speech, learn wisdom. Be truly wise. True wisdom is not just a behavioral thing. If we are wise, we will act in wise ways. But it is that which is coming out of our heart, coming out of what we possess within. And so if you learn wisdom within, your speech will begin to control itself. Now, not saying that there's no value in those external controls. Again, we see that in verse 28. When the fool just stops talking, he is counted as wise. There is wisdom in that external control that says, I'm just going to shut my mouth. I'm not going to say anything. I really want to, but I'm going to be quiet. And learning that discipline of quiet, so that you hopefully will be learning wisdom along the way. But if all it ever is a discipline of quiet, you're not going deep enough. And so even as we're helping and discipling or counseling other believers, I think a Good News Club, we know, at least I trust you know, that we're dealing with a whole pack of fools in the proverbial sense. Folly is bound up in the heart of a child. And part of the task of Good News Club, and part of the task of Christian parenting, of Christian training, is to bring the fool to wisdom. And so as you're thinking about interacting with, again, children, family members, other people that may be struggling in the area of their tongue, you need to help them realize this is a heart issue. There is a direct link, and you need to deal with the heart. You need wisdom within. And so to control your speech, learn wisdom. The third bullet there, true understanding will help you control your emotions. So again, we're talking about a calm spirit here. It comes from this understanding, this wisdom that rightly directs and helps you navigate life. And so again, the internal upset, the fear, worry, angry, whatever it may be, that wisdom helps control those things. And then the fourth one, stop talking and you may learn wisdom. And really it is that simple. Stop talking, listen, and you may learn wisdom. Even when, and this is one of those, maybe somewhat of a backhanded way of learning wisdom, but Proverbs certainly points this out to us, that we learn wisdom by watching the fool. We saw last week, strike the scoffer, and the simple will be made wise. Certainly a wise person or somebody who's on the path to wisdom is going to look at others. And so you can listen quietly to a fool and learn something. You can learn, at the very least, I don't want to do that. I know I shouldn't do that. I recognize this is folly, and you're hearing it expressed. Maybe in a way that you wouldn't even have expressed it, but you're hearing it and consequently are learning wisdom. So stop talking. Again, not ever, don't just never talk. But I think really the best response from Proverbs is say less, listen more. So, again, right off the bat, what kind of parallelism is this one? Contrasting. Again, the conjunction but helps us with that. So, what is the first thing contrasted? What's the first thing in this verse that we see referenced? Okay, the mouth of the righteous. So we have the mouth, and it tells us whose mouth? The righteous one's mouth. Where's the contrast? The mouth of the wicked. So we have the wicked person's mouth and the righteous person's mouth. Then the next contrast is a little bit more difficult. You have a statement of what it is. So the verb is just it is. But what is it? What is the mouth of the righteous? A well of life. So it's a specific kind of well. It's a well of life. So as opposed to what? It might be a well of death. Yeah. Well of poison, well of sewage. It'd be, we have a contrast of that which is life-giving with, if you will, there's anything else. An empty well. A dry well is not a well of life, especially in the Middle Eastern world that Solomon was writing from. So, and then you have the contrast here, and this is really, it's not a parallel in this verse here, but we have that, and I marked this out covers. I mean, I think you can see conceals and covers. You see they're related to one another, but I put conceals because I also think a cover is just, you're talking about a well, put a big cap on it. And that's really not it. It said it is intending to hide something. So what is intending to be hid by the mouth of the wicked? Violence. Yeah, now we are at violence. And so this is where the contrast is the violence concealed by the mouth of the wicked versus the well of life that is the mouth of the righteous. And so you have here really two choices. You have two things. You have that which is beneficial and that which is harmful. What is the key distinction in this verse? What do you think is the most important contrast in this verse? Yeah, what we really have in this is the most important is the righteousness and the wickedness. Remember, we just talked about this. What is the mouth connected to? It's connected to the heart. If there's a righteous man, his mouth is going to speak righteousness. If he's a wicked man, his mouth is going to hide violence. And so really what is most important, even though he absolutely is telling us this is what comes from these two things, or this is what they do, the most important is who are we talking about? The righteous and the wicked, or to say it in the other way that Proverbs says it, the wise and the foolish. And so that the righteous, wise person use their words to minister life to those who hear them. The well of life, it's a vivid picture. You think about an arid environment. You think about the Middle East. You think about the American deserts. In a place where there is minimal water. And to have a well, have a place where there's always a source of clear, drinkable water. It is, you can literally call it a well of life because without that, there is no life there. If that well runs dry, people are going to die. It is a life-giving well. That is the mouth of the righteous. On the other hand, the mouth of the wicked is a destruction hiding tool. And this is why I was saying earlier, they're really not parallel in this, because again, the way it's structured, it is the mouth of the wicked conceals violence. It is they're using their mouth to hide the hatred and the animosity, the malice in their own hearts. They have a wicked intent that is they're intending to obscure. So this is not always the case, but in Proverbs 10 and a number of sections in Proverbs, there are proverbs linked together by their thoughts. And here, Proverbs 10, 11, and 12 are linked. So Proverbs 10, verse 10, he who winks with the eye causes trouble, but a prating fool will fall. So if you remember when we were looking through the opening monologue of Proverbs, I talked about the one who is winking with his eye, he shuffles with his feet, he gestures with his hands. This is a conspirator. I think in the earlier section of Proverbs, it is someone who is sending secret signals to his gang. They've picked a victim. He is talking to the victim while he's winking over here at this guy so they know this is the one. That's what he's talking about. This winking with the eye is one who is plotting destruction. And then he says, the mouth of the righteous is a well of life, but violence covers the mouth of the wicked. Hatred stirs up strife, but love covers all sin. And so there is a connection here between the malice of the evildoer who would look to mug somebody unsuspectingly, the hatred that he holds in his heart that stirs up trouble, and the mouth of the righteous, which gives life, or the mouth of the wicked, which conceals violence. This one, to go back again to chapter 10, verse 10, to go back to verse 10, the mouth of the wicked, he's running his mouth. He's talking to you. He's smiling. He's happy. He's friendly. He's distracting you so that his gang can come up behind you, or they can put themselves in a position that they need to be in. He is talking very specifically to conceal the violence that they're about to do. And so the principles, there's a lot I could say with this, but the principles here, a righteous heart produces wise words. We've already said that a number of different ways. And the second principle, the words of the righteous improve life. The contrast here, I think, is very telling in our culture right now. As the words of the righteous improve life. Does our culture think truly righteous words are beneficial for people? Absolutely not. They view them as hateful words, as words that are going to drive people to depression and suicide. As words that are going to lock people into some sort of bondage that they don't want to be in. They're going to be stuck with a kid. Horror of horrors. And yet that's what the righteous, they say, no, this abortion is murder. Homosexuality is an abomination. Transgenderism is mutilation. And the secular world, the unsaved world, looks at it and says, that's evil. That's not life-giving. That's life-destroying. The Bible says that it's righteousness and words of righteousness that truly give life. It's the words of the wicked that are so destructive. And I know we don't need to be convinced of that on those in those arenas, but that's what we're talking about. And so the application here, pursue righteousness. It will be good for you and others. Then second, be righteous to speak righteously. Now, I'll stress this again because this is so vital to understanding our words, is that we must be righteous. If we're going to speak that which is beneficial, we must be righteous. Speech starts within. Your lips are directly connected to your heart. To change your speech, your heart must change. on the principles of wise communication. I encourage you again to take these and work through these on your own. First principle of wise communication, talk less. It really is. That's where to start. That's a great place to start. Talk less. Second, closely guarded lips keep the soul from trouble. We haven't touched on this at all, but there is a way in which this is a two-way street. The heart and tongue are directly connected, but there is no check valve so that only what comes out of the heart comes through the tongue, but it doesn't go the other way. It's a two-way street, so that what we speak affects our own soul. It affects our own life. That proverb there, I believe it's Proverbs 21:23, talks about it very specifically. That if your words are unguarded, if your mouth is unguarded, you're going to bring trouble on your life. So if you would like to have less trouble in your life, talk less. Guard your words more carefully. Third, speak to please the Lord. Speak to please the Lord. This is a crucial instruction as we think about what we're saying and why we're saying it. There's so many times we want to speak to please the person we're talking to. And we are rightly concerned with how are they hearing this? What are they hearing? There's wisdom in speaking in a way that is pleasant. In fact, there's another proverb that says that it's by agreeable speaking that learning is aided. If we're speaking well, and we're speaking in a gentle or an agreeable fashion, it's going to help somebody learn. They're going to be more inclined to listen. So we're not completely disinterested in the one we're talking to, but they're not our ultimate audience. The one that we most desire to please is the Lord. So speak to please the Lord. Then the next bullet, do not lie. Do not deceive or fib, shade the truth. Do not lie. Wise speech is more valuable than treasure. Proverbs 20:15 says there's gold and there's silver or rubies in abundance. But more precious are the words of the wise man. Wise speech is more valuable than treasure in part because it's a lot more rare than treasure. Wicked speech is destructive to others, those around us. It's destructive to our community, to our society, to the world at large. Wicked speech is destructive to our own selves. It is hurtful to us. It brings harm on us, brings punishment on us, but it also harms us. We also see, next bullet, not everything needs to be said. The proverb says several times that the wise man doesn't speak everything he knows. It is the fool who speaks everything he knows. Not everything needs to be said. Not every true thing needs to be said. Not even every profitable thing needs to be said. Years ago, I saw a clip, a little cartoon. The man sitting in front of his computer, and so old that had a big tube computer screen. The one, the big ones like that, and the off-screen voice. You see the text coming from off-screen. A wife yelling, "Honey, come to bed." And he's sitting there in the computer, and his response is, "I can't. There's somebody wrong on the internet." And that was 20-something years ago, back when there's a lot less wrong on the internet. But it's not a mark of wisdom to correct every wrong, every inaccurate statement. We're actually not called to fact check everybody in the sense of saying and pointing out to them that was a lie. There are times where it's profitable, and there are times where it does not need to be said. And again, wisdom knows which time is which. Then the next bullet, not everything needs to be said. Then evaluate your audience. And we're going to come to Proverbs 26 in the weeks to come. But Proverbs 26, 4 and 5 is that pair of proverbs that cause a lot of head scratching. Do not rebuke a fool according to his folly, lest you be like him. Rebuke a fool according to his folly, lest he be wise in his own eyes. Evaluate who you're talking to. Evaluate not just the one directly you're talking to, but who else is hearing. I think that is part of the answer of those two verses. Then the next bullet, rash speech is great folly. To speak without thinking, to speak impulsively, is foolish. Wisdom thinks carefully about its words. And with that, think deeply before answering. A couple weeks ago, we saw that man devises his way, but it is the Lord who directs his step. Man plans his response, but it's the Lord that opens the mouth. And we touched on it then, that we have to think deeply, think carefully about our answer. And so there are, I know not every situation we can think as deeply as we would like or even as we need to, but we should give thought before we answer. We should think carefully before we answer, and we should be able to think enough to say, I don't know the answer, and the best thing I can do at this point is to say, I don't know. I know I don't know, and I'm not going to make up something or try to impress you with nonsense. It just sounds knowledgeable. I'm going to say I don't know, but I'll go find out, and then go think deeply. Go dig, research, study, think about the answer. And so think deeply before answering. The next principle, one will reap the reward of his speech. Or you want to say it this way, you will reap the reward of your speech. Proverbs 18, 20, and 21 is really interesting. If your words are words of life, you'll eat life from them. If your words of death, you will reap death from them. You will reap the fruit of your mouth. You will reap the reward of your speech. The next one, your manner of speaking profoundly affects others. So it's not just what you speak, how you speak it. Your manner of speaking profoundly affects others. So if you're angry, that anger will affect others. You will, when you speak, you may not say anything wrong. You may not cuss at them. You may not call them names, but your anger will be communicated and it will impact others. And then right speaking is life-giving. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. This does not mean that we are able to conjure up good or bad circumstances by what we're saying. This is not positive and negative confessions. If I speak positively about the state of my wallet, it will become full. There's nothing to do with that. And I don't have time to address that. I wish I did. But that's not it at all. It's this right here. The mouth of the righteous is a well of life. The words that we speak are righteous words. Righteousness is life-giving. And wickedness is death-bringing. And so when Proverbs says death and life are in the power of the tongue, he is saying the righteous tongue ministers life and abundance. The wicked tongue brings death and destruction. So right speaking is life-giving. And then the next one, kind speech teaches better than harsh words. I already alluded to this one. Kind speech teaches better than harsh words. Second to the last, timing matters as much as content. I don't remember which of the three references it is there, but one of those verses says he greets his friend early in the morning with a loud verse. It will be counted a curse to him. That is a night owl's favorite verse. The morning person comes along all bright and cheery and happy and, yay, it's wonderful, it's morning. The sun's not even up yet. And the night owl is saying, your cheer is a curse. It does not bless me, it curses me. But the point is, it's not just what you say, it's not just how you say it, it's when you say it. You give a chance to have a cup or three of coffee and wake up a little bit, and then your cheery words will be received as a blessing. And so timing matters as much as content. Tone, last one, matters as much as content. I've already touched on that. How we say it matters as much as what we say. So what do? 4 quick applications. Listen before you speak. Proverbs 18:13 says it is folly to answer a matter before you hear it. Until you've heard the whole thing, you don't know what you're talking about. So listen first. Think before you speak. And listening and thinking, at least in general sense, don't always go together. You can hear something, and people who do hear things and don't think anything about it. They hear it, don't even hear, actually they hear the words, but they don't even register the words. So think well before you speak. Third, be a man or woman of few words. Again, it goes back to talk less. And then finally, prefer pleasant words, but do not neglect words of rebuke. Wisdom does not always speak things that are always easy to hear. We've touched on that. We see Lady Wisdom herself rebuking, saying, I will mock at your calamity. Lady Wisdom speaks harshly or speaks with rebuke and correction at times. But we should not be characterized by always being hard, but preferring pleasant words, gracious words, kind and gentle words. And then when our harder words will bear more weight, actually. They will be more significant, and we will not need to be as harsh. So prefer the pleasant, but do not neglect the words of rebuke.